Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
So,
since I can edit all this stuff out, can I just
mhm.
say, hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to do another technology sort of focused topic on language learning, Japanese language learning in particular today. I'm here with my friend Gavin, who is a Japanese learner and is at, I would say, kind of the cutting edge. He's using all the tools, the online digital stuff that's available, and we're just gonna share some screens and talk about what he's doing because he's using JPDB, as he'll show us. He's using Boon Pro. He's also using, well, with the JPDB, he's using Netflix, and he also uses Language Reactor. I don't know if he's going to show us that. Don't want to be pushy with any of this. And the other thing is Wanikani, right? Is that the full extent of it, or is there something else?
No, I think that's all. Yeah.
Okay, take us through it, and you just say a little bit about how you how it's going and what you're doing with these things.
Yeah. Yeah, I do different things. I'm sort of doing a combination of listening to native material without any kind of translation aid, just pure listening.
Hmm.
And I'll
Hmm.
I'll actually go into that first. So really, I just use like a Japanese language podcast, and there's all kinds of these.
Hmm.
Um, but the one I'm using right now is called Nihongo Kontepe, which is he there's a disadvantage to this in the sense that um, he doesn't have a transcript. So
Hmm.
for some people that might be a negative. Since this is just for listening practice for me, it's not a negative. He has a ton of episodes. I mean, you can see like really
And they're
it just
pretty
kind of
short too.
keeps, yeah, they're all about 3 minutes. So I typically listen to four or five. He speaks at what I would say is just a normal pace. It's not too slow.
Hmm.
It's not overly fast. And he just talks. And he has these at beginner and intermediate and advanced levels.
Hmm.
There are some other Japanese podcasts, like Japanese with Shun is one that I listen
Hmm.
to. Um, his are a little bit longer. Um, so I also listen to um,
Yes,
this
I see.
is
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
this
know
is one
this
that
one.
you actually
Yeah,
showed to me. These are longer episodes.
and they're a little deeper.
Um,
It's kind of,
yeah,
yeah,
they
it can be
are.
challenging, but they're really rich.
Yeah. Um, so that's what I'm using. Another thing that I will do is I will watch um, episodes of shows that I'm using in JPDB with Japanese subtitles, no English at
Hmm.
all. Um, and I try to do that a couple times a week
Hmm.
just to sort of switch up my listening material.
Hmm.
Um, so Boonpro is an app that is technically um, it hasn't been released yet. It's still in the beta testing um, sort of stage, I think is what it's called. Um, and so you actually, if you're an iPhone user, you have to download Test Flight, which is the app right next to it, and that actually allows you to um, beta test apps, and then you just open the Test Flight app, and then you search for what you're looking for.
Mm.
Um, so what Boonpro is it is a spaced, it's an SRS system, but for grammar. You can do vocabulary, but it is specifically for grammar. As you can see, it has N5 all the way down to N1. It has all of
Hmm.
the fun kind of stat things that you like. Um, and it sort of, there's a community forum. Um, And there is a sort of just like with WaniKani, they kind of have a roadmap for you. Like in an ideal world, if you do, your lessons and reviews every time they come up, within a year or something, you will know the sort of um, the basic kanji that you need to know to sort of read a newspaper. Um, uh, and Bunpro has this as well. I am not using that. And I'm not using WaniKani's recommended thing because I'm doing other things. So I'm only doing about 5 or 6 new lessons in WaniKani every time they come up. So I kind of have a little bit of a backlog of lessons right now. But the flip side is I never have a pile of reviews that is too much for me to get through, um, which is a danger that you can run into with um, things like JPDB, anything SRS. So,
Hmm.
um, and we can actually, I'll take you through because the lessons here are very short. So, this is kind of what it looks like. So, the grammar point is, view verbs. So,
Hmm.
but then in the negative.
Hmm.
So it goes over the structure for casual and polite. Um, and these are all, it doesn't give you every single one, but it just breaks down kind of common ones. Then there's details. You can add notes. Um, there is basically an explanation for um, all of the different ways that these could come up. And it's quite thorough, but it doesn't feel like it's too much. And then there's kind
Hmm.
of general cautions in a lot, like, by the way, this kind of looks like this. Don't confuse it. Um,
Hmm.
so then you have the examples. I don't know if the audio, let's see.
I don't hear it.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't,
Maybe
I wasn't sure if you would, because I have my
sometimes you can.
headphones in.
Okay, okay, okay. It's fine.
So you can copy the sentences. There are examples for how they're worked. And then the cool part is it links you to all of these other websites that handle the same exact thing, but just in more detail. And so what I often will do when I'm learning, so this is why I only do, probably one new point a day because I will go to one of these other websites. Well, that's the first time that's happened. Let's see. Take him pretty much always works. Um, so here's the take him page on the exact same, topic more or less, and it gives you kind of the full breakdown. And so, and then every time you read one of these, you can check the box, you know, and say that you've done it. And then what it does is just like any other SRS system, there's a review section, um, and you can kind of scroll through. It tells you, when you're going to get reviews, um, what that, it's got all the fun charts that people who really like the
Yeah.
charts. Um,
So I just saw that you've got like you've done 19 out of 126. Is that like a are those 19 grammar points or something?
yeah, yeah. So that is 19 of of these sort of lessons here. Um,
Okay.
and so yeah, I haven't been using Bunpro as long as some of the other things. Most people know about WaniKani. Do you want me to go through
Yeah, sure.
WaniKani or
Yeah, maybe just kind of because I have some people who are just starting to get going with WaniKani, and this might be useful for them or whoever.
so uh WaniKani is just for kanji. Um, you know, um, so here's all the sort of charts, and you can see. uh, the rate at which reviews will come up. Um, it shows, what level I am with different things. So I've actually had WaniKani for mm, about as long as I've been, I would say, maybe seriously trying to learn Japanese, which really I would say started last year with any kind of like regular frequency.
Mhm.
And but because of that, I didn't know really how to use it. I kind of jumped in and very quickly was overwhelmed by the reviews. So what happens with WaniKani is they give you reviews basically every day, and they try to space out when they give you lessons because the lessons teach you new kanji, or at the beginning, they teach you some of the radicals before they actually begin to introduce you to kanji. Um, and so, uh, you sort of, and they give it to you. Each lesson has about five. And what it does is it gives you the kanji and how it's pronounced and what it means. Um, and then they introduce that to you in blocks of, I think, four or five. And then as you read through each one of them, they quiz you immediately. And then that goes into a pile of reviews. I have just been doing five lessons in a day in WaniKani, um, so that my review pile does not get out of hand because I
And you
don't
do it
want
every
to
day.
have to, yeah, so I don't want to have to reset it. Um,
Okay.
and because the reviews will get, if you could imagine you learn 200 kanji, you've got 200 reviews, and they really want to drill it into you. So it's a great system, but you have to do what you can do. Um, Another thing that I use just for listening and reading practice, this is a Japanese Bible app,
Aha.
um, that you can see at the bottom there. There's a play button. It actually reads out the verses. Um, and so sometimes I listen to this. Um, and as you can see, there's no English. And this is an entirely Japanese app. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, there's the menu button, and that's in English, but so uh, like I don't
Yeah.
know basically any of these, So I'm really having to kind of stretch my kind of not like it's an entirely Japanese developed, and the buttons at the bottom, they skip the chapter, they skip the verse, and things like that, and you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
highlight and link and save and things like that you can use and do in pretty much any kind of Bible app. But I use this a lot for listening, and things like that. And because it's entirely in Japanese, there's no way for me to handicap it. That's also why I like Nihongo Kontepe, because he doesn't give you a manuscript. It's entirely in Japanese. Um, so I can't handicap it. um, Another thing I do is I have a YouTube channel, and I haven't used it in a while. Um, but I have a YouTube channel where I created it just for language learning. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
use it. Um, and I only have searched and liked videos with content that I'm interested in Japanese. So I have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
cooking content, some sort of Christian content, and a lot of content about like tea and coffee and chadao and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that's those are all the things. Ling is it is a uh, it's a reading app. Um, this is one you'd probably have to talk to our friend Sean about because he has
I've
used
used it a lot.
used
I know Link
yeah
quite well. Yeah.
yeah. So
There's a free version too. The mini stories and all that stuff are they're available in the free version.
yeah. Um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think that's pretty much in terms of
Did you
phone
want
content.
could you tell us okay, so you're gonna move to JPDB now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I need to get off of this and I'm gonna stop sharing the phone and then I'm gonna move to my computer screen. Okay. Let's see. This should already be approved. Okay. All right. Um, I'm gonna move this over. Okay, so JPDB it works in a very similar way to Anki, except what JPDB does is it has entire decks that you can add um, that work on an SRS system, um, and yeah, I'm not exactly sure all of the differences between Anki and JPDB, except um, I do find JPDB to be much more intuitive, at least for me, because I don't have. I know lots of people who learned how to use Anki when they were in school, like in high school and college. I didn't do that. Um, I had opportunities, but I'm kind of a paper and pen person, so I never really learned Anki. It wasn't until I started trying to learn Japanese that I found out about Anki, and I just don't find it to be as intuitive as JPDB. But
Yeah. JPD is really good. It's really good.
how I'm using JPDB, um, once again, you know, you're kind of your settings matter with things like this. It starts you at, I think, 20 new cards a day. I don't do that much. As you can see, I have five. And five is my minimum. And so what I do every day with JPDB is I load an episode of a show. I don't load one every day, but I load an episode of a show that I'm watching.
Hmm.
Um, And then what I do is it has all of the vocab from that show. And every single day, I do a minimum of five new words and I do all of my reviews. So I do all of my reviews every day and I do five new words every day. And there are days where the combination of doing Wanikani, doing Bunpro, doing my JPDB words, doing my sort of listening practice, and then using Lang Reactor, which we'll talk about in a couple of minutes. Um, there are days where that's all I can do.
Hmm.
Like when I sort of think about whether I can do anything else, I just can't. Um, But there are days when, I kind of get into a flow and I want to learn more things in Bunpro and I'll do that. Or I want to learn more vocabulary. So I can, JPDB gives you the option to keep going when you're doing your reviews. But it doesn't, you don't have to, it doesn't force you. So I'm not going to click into the reviews because that'll actually take me into
Right.
the learning cycle for the day. But as you can see, what it does is it shows you where you're at in terms of the amount of vocabulary you've covered in an episode. Um, and what I found out about recently is when you delete a deck, because sometimes, you pick a show and it's not the right fit, or, maybe you get really behind on your reviews, so you kind of need to clear things out. The words that you know in JPDB, even if they come from a deck that you have deleted, if you have reached a certain kind of proficiency with those words within the system, it does
Hmm.
not forget them. As you can see here, um, I know sort of 158 words and then 22 words, kind of directly. But if you look at the actual progress in this episode that I've made, like it doesn't match up. And that's because I had another deck loaded in here and then I restarted using the system. Um, and so it logs all of it. So when you
Hmm.
actually
Yep.
put new decks on, it takes that into account. So when there are new words that it doesn't just keep it doesn't make you keep learning those.
Right,
Um,
right. And if I could just throw in a comment here, I had some trouble setting the thing up. And I had to get some help from our friend Sean. And I had enabled the kanji learning, right? I was trying to watch a show and I clicked this episode. Well, I made a mistake of clicking the entire series, and that was way too much vocab. And I also had clicked the kanjis. So I'm watching this tons and tons and tons and tons of stuff and lots of kanji work. And I'm like, I learned this kanji 20 years ago. I don't need to see it. And it was quite frustrating. So I had to get rid of the kanji, take out the episode, and then just only have one episode. I mean, I don't put the whole series in, right? Only have one episode at a time. And then yeah, I started to get it, like so it starts to feed you stuff, and it's still some kind of easy stuff, and I don't need this, I don't need that. But then you can start to feel it set to get to where your level is, right? Um, and I guess I wanted to ask you, and it really does work. It really does work. But there's a couple of things that we could talk about. Um, there are these different categories, like one is like nothing, and then one is something, and then one is hard, and then one is okay, and then one is easy, and then one is the very top one is I know this and I will never forget, right? Um, and this is the kind of the same thing with Anki too. Like sometimes in Anki, I'm like, well, I kind of know this and I'll just click something. But if I know I really, really know it, I'll try to get out of my face. I'm not really sure what happens to all this stuff when you click these different things. I know that it's not going to come up again if you click I know and will never forget. Um, but whatever, it's a little vague as, should I be clicking okay or something, or easy? What's the difference between okay and easy? Well, that's kind of the same thing. Um, but anyway, but it seems to work. And I do my reviews. And what's really another really nice thing that should be pointed out is like it'll often give you a sentence. You can
yes,
hear the guy say it,
yes.
right? Which is great. Um, I also
And
find that it helps me to write. I have some notes. I need to write things down sometimes. Just I want a little more reinforcement, so I'll write a word down, you know? And then you go back to the episode, and lo and behold, wow. Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. It really does start to build up. It's really pretty amazing, pretty wonderful.
yeah, and the sentences especially are great. Like there are plenty of times where um because one of the things about for example, Wanikani, one of the things they're really great about is when they're teaching you a new character, they try to give you sentences and sort of wordplay and things like that to help you remember the reading and the meaning, and they're
Hmm.
phenomenal at that. The thing about JPDB is you don't really get that. You get a word, you get a sentence, but there's no like mnemonic devices or anything like
Hmm.
that. So, but when they throw the sentences in there, it's great because when you get used to paying attention to things in something like Lang Reactor, that actually helps when you're looking at the sentence. At least it does for me. Like when you get that sort of uh, click in your brain. Um,
Yeah. Well, could we
yeah.
let's move to let's talk about language directory
Yeah,
just
we'll
a little
do
bit.
let's see.
Okay,
Okay,
because
so
I had never heard of this until you told me about it like a week ago. And okay, um, can I just say like what I'm not that big of a fan of this thing. Although it is great because you get like you can get Romaji on the screen for kanjis and you can click it and it'll tell you what the meaning is. Okay, you can also it has this 2 week trial thing. And I don't know what's going to happen after this 2 weeks is over, actually, but I think I'm in the trial thing. And I can add these words like it says add to learning or like something like that, right? And so I'm studying some Korean dramas because I've been messing with Korean for a long time and I'm still not that good at it. But anyway, so like I'm adding these words to this like database somewhere, right? Of this thing I'm watching. And then it can say, then there's like this where it says like phrase pump. You ever seen that?
no.
Like it gives you a way,
Are you
like I
talking
don't
about
know.
Lang Reactor?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Do you have it like where it could say like practice? See, I don't see what I see is
Uh
saved.
Let me
Like
see.
close that out. Like
So can you hear that audio, by the way?
yeah, it's kind of not real loud, but I can hear it.
Let's see.
Do you have that
Okay.
see that orange button at the bottom all the way down? Yeah.
Yeah,
So you
Mark is
can
learning.
okay, mark it as learning, right? So you can click it. But
Yeah.
it says that's a pro feature. So maybe you haven't clicked in to choose the pro feature.
No, I haven't really played with all of the features in Lang Reactor. Lang Reactor is so all of the things that I've detailed so far are all things that I've known about for some time. So I've played with the features a little bit. Lang Reactor is totally new to me. Um, you know, yeah,
All right.
a friend of
Let me
mine
just
told
say
me about
this
it.
for
So
anybody who's listening and maybe I'll find out, but maybe you can tell me if you hear and you know. If you have the pro version, you have this database of words that you've seen and you want to know, right? And so there's this thing called phrase pump, right? And so that will start to feed back to you some of the words you've seen, but it puts it in a context, which is cool. So, for example, you don't know the word book and you click, I want to learn book, right? And it'll give you something like, oh, I forgot my book. And you'll hear that in Korean or whatever, in Japanese. Yeah. And first time it'll give it to you by sound. And then you can click, well, I don't recognize it by sound, but I want to see it. So you click this little eyeball thing and you can see it. And you think, well, I still don't know it. And you can click it. It gives you the meaning. But what starts to happen is it just gives you more and more phrases. The context that they start to give you becomes overwhelming. And I'm like, look, I wanted to know this word like in like minute 4 of this thing, of this video, the series that I'm watching, and I'm never even getting there. I'm just getting more and more and more context, some more words in the phrase pump. And I'm like, okay, when can I get rid of this phrase that you've seen me? It becomes a kind of a jungle. Maybe I just haven't figured it out yet. Maybe I need to be clicking out of things or something. But JPDB it really works because it's like it shows you, do you know it? Yes. Do I not know it? I want to see it again. Click, 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 click. You go through and you just kind of do your work and you get prepared, and you can feel yourself understanding more and more. I'm not such a big fan of like all these other things, but this part about language reactor is good.
yeah, I haven't really played with it. And even some of the things like, oh yeah, you can open Gshow, which I mean, Gshow is just a great resource in general.
Hmm.
It's a kind of online dictionary. I mean, I found that link, into things like Wiktionary and stuff to be really helpful. I really have just been, using it, not to keep any kind of database or anything,
Hmm.
which could be huge. Maybe I should be, but I really just sort of watch it. And yeah, I do take notes as well.
Get meanings and pronunciations, and
Yeah.
whatever else. Yeah.
So let's
Okay.
should do you want to play one through and show the sort of how it works
Yeah,
and
we
how
can
it
we
looks
can show them
or
how it looks. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Okay. So the the cool part about at least what I really love about this program is you can auto pause it. Um, so it will pause after every sentence. So we'll sort of all right. So I don't know why. Let's see if I can actually get the I don't know why the actual video isn't playing, but so the show plays and then it stops after every sentence. And so sometimes that works really flawlessly. In this case, this is all one sentence.
Hmm.
But you know, this is one sentence. So I would say for someone who is new, like brand new to the language, if you don't really understand Japanese sentence structure yet, that could be a little confusing, especially
Yeah,
if you start getting the words down. Because if you stopped here, um, and you're trying to kind of like parse this out, you're like, well, how is some of this fitting together? And then you
yeah,
kind of realize, well, there's a whole other sentence there. Well, a
yeah,
whole other part of the sentence.
yeah. You
Um,
got to kind of be semi-intermediate level for it to
but
be useful,
what's
but it pulls you in.
But what's phenomenal is that it introduces you to kanji at the same time, but it also gives you the romaji so you can follow along with it really, really well. I think without the romaji, I would be a little overwhelmed. So yeah, that's Lang Reactor. Lang Reactor
Okay.
is a plugin for Google. Like if you're using
Yeah. Google
uh,
extension.
yeah, Mac, you have to open a Google browser. So,
Okay. There's one
yeah.
last thing I want to ask you, if I may.
Sure.
So the big question, and you can see people bickering back and forth online about this. The people that talk about this is often called language immersion
Yeah.
technique. Um, that word used to be used differently, but anyway, it's what we know what they mean. Like a lot of spaced repetition, a lot of data. Watch stuff. Get it, get it, get it. Get the vocab in you. And then people will say, well, this is not practicing. Input is not practicing. So there's this, you have to also talk. But then people, I mean, simply sometimes people come by and I've seen this on in comment sections. Some people will say, look, okay, yes, but if you don't have the base, if you don't have vocab, if you don't know things, you can't talk. So yes, talking is important, but building the vocab and building, um, you got to have more and more stuff coming at you that you understand. So, but we have to practice speaking as well. So, how do you like, where do you see the ability to speak, raising the ability to speak, coming in conjunction with pulling in this input into your brain?
Yeah. I, you know, that's something that I think one of the tendencies that you can see in online things is a sort of tendency to make everything a one size fits all solution. Sometimes people are very comfortable just trying to speak in their target language early on. Other people feel more comfortable once they have all the vocab. I think ideally you should be working in some kind of speaking practice if you can. Um, but at the same time, everybody sort of everyone takes to it a little bit differently. So, um, yeah, I think it's good to have someone who knows the language to help you with that, but you can only do what you can do.